what is our Latin American heritage diet? As you can see over there is our diet pyramid. We have these for each of our heritage curriculums. And so this is for the Latin American heritage diet. It is a 6-week cooking and nutrition curriculum that is 100% plant-based and vegan. And so it's great because it's bilingual, offered in English and Spanish, and it covers all these different cultures that you see on the left-hand side, the Spanish, the Portuguese, the indigenous. And then it also goes over the 4 main regions, which is the Mexico, South America, Central America, and the Caribbean. And the great thing about this curriculum is it was developed by a committee of chefs and nutrition scientists and public health experts, all from Latin heritage. So, putting these recipes together aren't, they're from people who know exactly what they're doing and are experts in the field. So it's great. Let's see here. Oh, let's go to the next slide. Perfect. So typical Latino Americana diet, of course, it's everything that you'll see within other heritage diets. You always have the whole grains, the fruits, the vegetables, beans, rice, herbs, and spices. And one thing that we notice with our Latin heritage diet is that there is a strong emphasis on family time together. And so a lot of the times you'll notice when looking at different cookbooks or whatnot, the serving sizes are always very big because that's family time together. So, you have, abuelita with you, you have your mom, you have your cousins, we're all in the kitchen working together to, family bonding time. So it's really important. And you notice that a lot within the kitchen setting, which is beautiful. Another thing is, here's a quote from Marcel Priscilla, and you guys have probably heard of her cookbook. It's gigantic, and I actually have it right here. It's the Gran Cocina Latina. It's huge, but it is like a thesaurus for so many different recipes of Latin heritage. And so one quote that we got was, "To cook this food is to help knit the fabric of family." And I thought that was just beautiful. And look at this cover. So the chimichurri sauce will actually be based off of Marcel Priscilla's recipe. It won't be 100%, but it is similarities and based off that because we're in connection. And then here is what our Latin heritage curriculum looks like. This is my version, so of course it's a little scuffed up because I've used it multiple times. But this is what our curriculum looks like. So here, if you guys can see it. Perfect. Great. So now we're going to start on the chimichurri sauce. And this is a really good sauce. Typically it's made with, prepared with grilled meat. So it has that vinegar base, which is nice with grilled meats. But newer chefs now are swapping the parsley for cilantro, and that kind of takes up a little bit of that vinegar base, so it's not as strong. So depending on how you want to cook it, if you plan on having it alongside with meats, then I would stick with the parsley, the traditional way of doing it. And whereas if you're going for a more vegetarian side, I think cilantro would be a nice substitute for it. So first it's going to call for a bunch of flat leaf parsley. So we'll be chopping this up. And I have a blender here. Let me show you the head part of it. I have a blender here where I'll be blending it up. Some people, you could use honestly like a traditional grinder or even anything that you would usually use to blend your sauces. So this is a food processor. So this is just my quick fix way, and then we'll work on the stew. So let's get started. So first we'll need a head of garlic separated into cloves, peeled and finely minced. So I'm going to move this chopping board over here, and then I'm going to angle the camera down so everyone can see what I'm working on and techniques. Perfect. So this is my garlic right here for the head. So one tip that I like doing is whenever it has the skin on it, I'll put my knife right on top and bang it down and then peel off the skin around it. So it's super easy to get off that outer shell. Kind of like cracks like an egg. So I'm just going to do that with each of my cloves. Peel away. Usually for cooking demos, some people will have these pre-prepped ingredients. I kind of want to show you my technique, so that's why I've decided to actually keep them fresh from their original state. We're just going to pound each of these. And this sauce is super quick, especially when you have all the ingredients prepped and chopped up. It should take around like 10 minutes or less, which is really nice. Just pounding these up. And then also what I'd like to talk about is the significance of the chimichurri sauce. It's very popular in Argentina and Uruguay. You know, typically accompanied with grilled meats, but what we'll be doing with this is we'll have it over some roasted potatoes, and we'll also have a fried egg on top, because I've seen a vegetarian's way of preparing that, and it's super easy. Really nice because it can be kind of stress relieving, just getting out the garlic pieces. Perfect. Great. Now, one thing I like to do, because sometimes the knife gets sticky whenever you're banging out garlic, is just rinse it off real quick so it'll be easier and ready for chopping. So I'm just going to quick rinse. Great, so now let's get chopping. So we want it minced just because the smaller pieces, and there's actually a science to that where it's garlic, onions, especially you'll notice in like red onion is the smaller you chop it, the more concentrated the flavor. And you'll notice that especially with like, I mean, I recommend, you know, just try it with your salad or whatnot. Instead of doing like thin slices, try dicing it, and you'll notice a difference in the like potency of the flavor. So the smaller the pieces, the more stronger it is in contact. So just mincing this up and slicing it, and I'll go back the other way. But yeah, so your kitchen is definitely going to smell like garlic today because we'll be using plenty of it for these two recipes. And don't worry about being too much of a perfectionist, because in the end, it's going to go in a blender or a food processor. So, you know, it's going to be able to get blended up. You just want to blend it. You just want to cut it up a little bit so it can be finer and easier to honestly process when you mix all the ingredients together. Great. So when I say, you know, grilled meats that it goes good with, in specific, I'm thinking of chorizo, which is an Argentinian skirt steak, or polomia, which is a Cuban steak, but also it goes really nice with, you know, sides because it's a nice sauce. So, you know, you could even have it with a nice couple of slices of bread over some potatoes with beans. Like, it's a very versatile sauce, which is really nice. So just chopping this up, and let me put my camera back down just so you know what I'm working on. Perfect. And one thing with chopping is when you're chopping, you want to have your fingers in, so you're not getting close to your tips, because that's dangerous, like out. So you want to just do it in when you're chopping, just for safety. Perfect. So what I'm going to do is add it to the blender, which is so nice because it's kind of like a holding place where you can put in all the ingredients. Just add this in. And it probably looks like a lot of garlic, and believe me, it is. It's a whole head of garlic, so it is a lot. Let me tilt this back up. Perfect. Don't want to waste any. Perfect. Now I'm just going to rinse my knife one more time just so I can get chopping with the parsley. All right, perfect. Great. Now here's the parsley here. Typically we want a bunch of it, so I'll be taking this. And don't worry, you don't have to be too fancy with it. You know, just chop it up in smaller pieces and then add it over to your blender. So it's great because this sauce within the Latin heritage curriculum is actually on the chapter of herbs and spices. And it's nice because you know, there are a lot of fresh herbs within the Latin heritage cuisine that are used within, you know, traditional diets. So you've got, you know, the chili peppers, you've got parsley, cilantro, you've got, you know, pickled onions, oregano, which is also very common within the Latin heritage diet. So I just chop that up and adding it to the blender, and then perfect. I'll get a little bit more parsley and add it. Now this sauce will make 1 cup and a fourth, so it'll be a lot of sauce that you'll be able to use in multiple different recipes, which is nice. I think that's a really big part of also the Latin heritage diet. I think a lot of people look at the recipe and say, you know, wow, that's a lot of work for one recipe, but that really isn't the case. It's all about prepping certain sauces and ingredients so that when you need them, so say you need sofrito, you could add that to the Menestra stew when you need be, so you won't have to start all the way from the beginning each time making the sauce for each recipe. Perfect. So we have the parsley in here, and we also have the garlic. Great. So now we're going to add the red wine vinegar. I like this brand, but it doesn't matter which brand you use. It's Pompian, but I just like it. I usually use it for salads and whatnot, or making sauces like this. So we'll be adding a 1/2 cup of this, and then we'll be doing a 1/2 cup of olive oil, virgin olive oil. And then we'll also be doing a tablespoon of dry oregano. So let's get started with that. Perfect. So I'll show you here. Perfect. So I have a 1/2 tablespoon here, so I'll be using 2 scoops of this, of the oregano, to add into the blender. 1, 2. But that's because this is 1/2 a tablespoon. So because we need 1, I'll do 2 scoops of this. Now we'll be doing 1 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. Here is the red pepper flakes. These labels. Okay, perfect. 1 teaspoon of this. Perfect. Now what we'll be doing is a 1/2 cup of red wine vinegar. And of course, that's gonna make a huge difference in the flavor profile. 1/2 cup of red vinegar. So I have it here. So I'm just pouring it in the cup. Great, now we'll be doing a 1/2 cup of the olive oil. I have a pour here, but I think I will use straight from the bottle just so I don't take up too much time. Olive oil. That's another 1/2 cup. Perfect. Perfect. So then we have a teaspoon of salt, and to taste, I have a teaspoon here. I'm gonna screw the top off. So I'm gonna probably do a little bit less than a teaspoon just because I'm not, I love making recipes and then adding the salt afterwards, but I know this calls for it, so I'll just do a little bit there. And then a teaspoon of freshly ground pepper, black pepper, which I have right here. Perfect. Great. Now we're gonna, oh my gosh, that's the wrong lid. Oh, that's funny. Okay. I just put the vinegar lid in here on accident. Great. So now what I'm going to do is just pop the lid on of the blender, and then I'll get going with that. And I like just using pulse just so I can kind of work with the consistency more instead of just clicking, you know, salsa, milkshake, smoothie. I just like kind of pulsing it. So excuse me for the noise in advance, but here's the blend. Perfect. We have this very nice green color, and you know, it's still a little chunky because that's kind of how you like the sauce. What I'm going to do now is prep the fried egg, and then you know, just make the plate because we'll have it over some potatoes and a fried egg on top. So I'm just adding a little bit of butter to the pan here. I'll tilt it down also a little bit. Great. So if you're like me, then you probably like cleaning while you cook. So I'm always kind of tidying up while I'm cooking things just so I can be organized for the next recipe. Just spreading the butter around, and now I'm gonna crack an egg over it. Perfect. I'm gonna get the potatoes ready out of the oven. They've just been roasting for a little bit. And how I season the potatoes, I just did a little salt, pepper, and oregano, but you could just have them plain, of course, also. I just am a huge fan of seasoning, so let me just use this.
Sarah, please let me interrupt for just a moment. We've had a couple people asking to see you in the large screen, and that's a user issue. So I just want to take a moment to advise everyone. If you want to change the view on your Zoom, what you're seeing right now on your screen is Sarah's kitchen, and you're seeing the recipe for the chimichurri she's making. There's a little slider. There's a couple of little lines between those two images. And if you take your cursor and grab those two lines, you can slide either way. So if you really want to take a look at that recipe, you can make it huge, or you can make it very tiny and thus enlarge Sarah's view. I've been viewing her and just a little bit of the recipe off to the side. So if you need to change your view, that's something you're able to do yourself. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, absolutely. So great. Gonna pop these back in to sit. Great. So I have the potatoes here. These are the roasted potatoes that I did beforehand. And then I have this fried egg here that's almost done. I like my eggs a little yolky, so I'll warn you in advance. I know most people don't, so you can always cook it longer. And then we'll be adding some chimichurri sauce on top. So I have the chimichurri sauce right here. And then dazzle it over a little bit. Gonna brown the egg a little bit. I like a little crunch on the outside and gooey on the inside with my egg. So perfect. And then I'll add it on top like that. I'll just do a little bit more. And let me add a couple little parsley on top to make it look nice. Give me one moment. Perfect. Perfect. Great. So here's our dish. We have the potatoes on the bottom, we have the chimichurri sauce, and then we have a fried egg on top. And so this is more considered as like a side dish. So typically you would cook this along with either fish or grilled meats, which is really nice. But you know, this is definitely a vegetarian side if you're just wanting it as a side dish to go along with something else. But yeah, I love the pretty greens in it. So I think I'm gonna take a quick bite, because how do you know if it's good if, you know, someone isn't trying it? Be prepared for that vinegar kick to it. Yum. It's got strong flavor profile, but it's really nice when you have other items that are muted that it works well with.
We have a comment here, Sarah, from Naomi, and she says, oh my gosh, that's delicious. Never too much garlic and runny yolks. Part Irish.
Oh my God.
She says, part Irish, I love potatoes. I would eat it as a meal for dinner. Naomi, are you cooking today? Are you cooking along with us? Anybody who's cooking along, we'd love for you to raise your hand. That's how we're using the raised hand function today. And we would love to see what you're cooking. I don't want to press you, Carol. I'd like to ask you at the end. Oh, Naomi, you printed the recipes for dinner. Okay.
Oh, perfect. Well, yeah, I know it's early on your time. It's probably like dinner my time because it's around 5:30, but there it's like 2:30, so plenty of time. But absolutely, it's a really nice sauce. It's packed with flavor. So warning you now, it's got some flavor to it, but it goes really good alongside anything, honestly.
Yeah.
So.
And both of your dishes today they just come together really quickly. You know, the only reason it's taking so long is because you're explaining it to us, but it's super fast in the kitchen.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, I would say me explaining it definitely takes longer, but yeah, no, it's they're really quick to come by. The Menestra stew, which is the Ecuadorian lentil stew that we'll be doing next, actually takes longer depending on how you decide to make it. So to cut up some time, I decided to do canned lentils to use for the stew here. But you could also use dried lentils. Just be sure to, you know, prep them in advance because, and I included both. Let me go to the, oh, this was just the significance, but let's go to the Menestra stew. You could do it with fresh lentils or canned lentils. For time's sake, I'm gonna do canned, but if you'd rather do dry, it would just be 1 pound of dry lentils that you would, you know, let sit for a minute. So let soak. So it's really nice. And that's a picture of it actually on the right-hand side. I had made it a while ago and absolutely delicious. What I'll be doing differently with the Menestra stew this time is I'll be doing it over some rice, and then I'll have some avocado slices on the side, which is really fun. So let's get started. For prepping, I need to finish dicing up 1 yellow, red, or white onion. I decided to do yellow, but I'm just going to finish dicing this up and add it to this bowl here. That'll probably be the first ingredient we want to add into our pot. And just add a little bit of olive oil to it. I just did a slight drizzle to allow the vegetables to cook first. So I'm going to chop this up, dice this up real quick. Perfect. So, and one cool technique, if onions make you cry whenever you're dicing them up, I always recommend like putting them in the fridge for at least like 30 minutes or so, and you know, allowing it to like cool off, and so then the scent won't be as pungent and, you know, kind of make you cry. So that's a really good tip that I use. Or if you have to use it fresh, say you're in a rush, have like a really thick seasoning with you. So say you have some like curry seasoning or like cumin or whatnot, you don't use it for the recipe. You actually use it to smell it. So I guess it's kind of like a sensory distraction, but you could literally like, I guess, use oregano and just keep whipping that while you're chopping the onion to keep yourself from crying. I have like an extra shield, which are my glasses here, but yeah, typically I'll put them in the fridge and have a extra seasoning around just in case. Great. So I am just dicing these. Doesn't have to be too fancy. I mean, you do want it in like a little bit smaller bits just because it'll be a stew. So you'll be eating it, you know, and you don't want to have too much chunky onions, but also it depends on the individual. You know, if you like chunky onions in your stew, then dice them larger or use slices. Perfect. So we almost got it diced here. And now I'll just be adding this to my teeny tiny bowl. I think I'll be upgraded soon. Great. And surprisingly, this is not a large onion. This is just kind of like a small, the medium-sized onion, but when you're dicing it up, it makes so much. So perfect. So what I'm going to focus on right now is just prepping the ingredients. So once they're ready to be added into the stew, it'll kind of be super easy and simple going forward. What is really cool about this recipe is, you know, of course, it's an Ecuadorian lentil stew, but some people, they'll add sofrito, which is like another type of seasoning to the stew, just to give it like a boost of flavor. And then it's typically accompanied with ripe plantains and served, of course, with, you know, your share of grilled meats and along the Ecuadorian coast, they'll usually accompany it with fish, which is really good. So yeah, it's really nice, and it's a fun stew to make, and it's serves 8 to 10, so you'll definitely have leftovers and enough for the family, which is great. So now what I'm going to do is the 4 garlic cloves. So we have a head right here.
Sarah, we have an interesting question from Joanne. She'd like to know if this could be made in a slow cooker.
In a slow cooker. Yeah, if you're doing if you're doing lentils, if you're doing fresh dried lentils, I think it would actually be quicker doing it in a slow cooker. So if you're doing just dried lentils and not canned, it would actually be really nice. Whereas with canned lentils, you just want to be careful so it doesn't like overcook and become too mushy.
If you were going to do that in a slow cooker, would you still cook down all the aromatics first, the onion and the garlic and all that, before you toss it in the slow cooker with your dry lentils?
I think personally, I probably would, just because I kind of like to have, like sauteed garlic, sauteed onions, because it does have a different flavor when it's actually been sauteed and cooked down a little bit. So for flavor purposes, I would, but if you're busy, got kids from 9 to 5, throw it all in. I don't see why that would be a bad thing to do. So what we need, yeah, absolutely. So what we need is 4 garlic cloves for the stew. And so I'm just gonna, do my same technique where I pound them down. So I'll show you in a second. Perfect. And this is such a fun activity to do. Like, if you have children and you're trying to work on, kitchen knife safety, I think, getting them to chop up some garlic is a pretty hefty task and really fun, kind of having them do the pound first and maybe setting it aside for you to chop up and mince. But yeah, it's really nice, especially for the end of the day. So getting up these 4 cloves, and I got like medium-sized ones because how in some heads it could be like pretty tiny, like look at that, so tiny. So I got like nice like large medium-sized ones. Choose. But also remember, recipes are always, the foundation of things. So it's based upon how you like them. So if you love garlic, don't be shy, add some more. But just going off the foundation and recipe wise, I will be using the 4 cloves. Right. Have these almost chopped up. Perfect. And the cool thing is about Menestra stew is that it actually, perfect. Cool thing about Menestra stew is that it actually originated in Spain, in the northern region of Rioja. And so, but of course the colonization or whatnot, so it led to the influence of the Menestra stew. But when I was in Spain, because I did study abroad there I lived there for a couple of months in the Andalusia region. So I lived in Granada in Spain for a couple of months. I would say like 4 or 5, but I did notice that it was a large part of the food staple was like, especially during siesta, was kind of having like a nice stew. So usually it was kind of like I'd say like 2-course meal. So you would have the stew and maybe like some bread on the side, and then you would have another dish. So maybe croquetas or paella or, various different things. But stew was a big part of Spanish culture, particularly in Spain. So yeah, it was like every single day. It was like, all right, well, what's the stew of the day? And it's really nice and healthy. I'm just rinsing off this knife, but it's really nice and healthy. You just have to worry about the sodium intake. So, just watch out for that when you're making these stews. But it's really nice because, lemon, garlic, onion, it's the new salt. So you have all these fresh ingredients that make great substitutes for unhealthy seasoning, or, you know, just be taking it in moderation. So that was really nice. And so now I've already got the garlic and I've got the onion. Now what I'm gonna do is chop up a medium green bell pepper, and I'm gonna dice that. But I wanna show you this technique that I like using. Okay. Let's just make sure this is pressed. So here's my bell pepper here. I will peel off the sticker to it. So I'm left-handed, so it's weird because I use my right hand for chopping, but I'll try to do it this way, but it just feels very weird. So I just cut off the top of the bell pepper, and then if you see how there's like the core here, usually I just chop around that. Perfect. And then you just pull it out, and super easy. Now you don't have to worry about the messiness of seeds. So I'm just gonna pop that in. And now I like saving this typically whenever I need the extra pieces of bell pepper for stews, or, you know, just however I'm using seasoning. So I'll save this piece, and then I'll dice up this. So it's really nice to, you know, kind of chop it in half and have like a flat ground when you're doing this. And so, you know, and then you can just do strips and then go the opposite way. So I'll start with this one. Perfect. Now what I'll be doing is, you know, I always do vertical and then horizontal. So I'll have it one way and switch it the other. So that's what I'll be doing here. Perfect. Now what I'm going to do is just add this to a bowl right here. Another cool thing about Menestra stew is that it's actually pretty popular, you know, within the South America region. So you'll also see various different variations of it in Peru and Panama. And, you know, it may have a different name, but it all has kind of similar basis of, you know, the bell pepper, the tomato. So it's really nice.
Sarah, we have another suggestion for a way people can make this. Rose says this could easily be done in the Instant Pot also. Saute in the pot, like Sarah, only 8 minutes under pressure for dry lentils with 15 minutes natural release. I bet this would be great with a drizzle of thin chimichurri also.
Yeah, or what we'll be doing is we'll be putting it over, I'll be putting it over just some regular rice, and then a side of avocado slices. I was just seeing that that's how people like to have it, but it's so funny because it's really such a hearty stew that once you've made it, you don't really need anything else to go with it. I think the rice is kind of like a nice buffer to really get you full, but it's not necessary because it's already a hearty stew. Like lentils, you know, they have a lot of, you know, protein and fiber. So it's like you don't really need too much of anything else. But I think when you want to make it into a main course, that's typically how people would do it. But great tip on the Instant Pot, though. I mean, technology innovations, why not utilize them? Shorten the time and get everything done. So now we have the chopped bell pepper, just a green bell pepper. And it doesn't matter. You can actually use a red bell pepper, like in that picture there. I actually had used red bell pepper, so you could use red, green, yellow. So the recipe that we have from the curriculum just calls for the green one. But personally, I like using the red. But also, I'm the one eating it. So it's your preference because you're the one who's eating it. So we have the bell pepper here, and we'll make some room for it. So now I think it's great to do the tomatoes. And what I'm going to do also is I'm just going to start up the pot a little bit so to get it cooking. So I'm just going to turn my stove on and have it on medium high to get the oil cooking. And then we'll be adding the 3 ingredients. Great, so while I wait for that to do, I'm going to chop up some tomatoes. So this calls for 3 tomatoes, or it calls for 3 fresh tomatoes, or you could use a can of diced tomatoes. I happen to have a lot of tomatoes because tomatoes are just now coming out of season. So a lot of farmers markets and people who grow them have like way too many tomatoes. So I'm going to use up the tomatoes that I have, but you could also use canned diced tomatoes too. So here are my pre-rinsed tomatoes. I'm just going to dice these up and also have them ready in this bowl. Let me show you what I'm doing. Perfect. And then, great. So now I have the pot heated. I'm going to add in the garlic. Add that to the pot. Just make sure everyone can see. Great. We're gonna add the onion. I know it looks like a lot, but I promise you it will cook down and not look like onion soup. Great. And then bell peppers. Just 1 bell pepper, but diced up in a bunch of little bits. Right, so I'm just gonna stir that around. Get it going. Perfect, so I just want that to cook down. And while that happens, I will be slicing up these tomatoes because I have 3 to do. And then I'll be adding in the, the liquid. So we have the water and then the dried lentils a little bit later, but we want these to at least cook for 5 minutes or so, just till the onions are translucent. So I'm gonna get to doing that. And what I can do is I can add the red pepper flakes now. So all that is just 1/2 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. Perfect. So great. Go back to stirring that in. Perfect. Now I'm just gonna go back to dicing up the tomatoes. Perfect. Now make it on the ends. And back to chopping these. So warning now, your kitchen is definitely going to smell very fragrant with the onion and bell pepper, but not enough to make you cry. So add that in. Perfect. So we have 1 tomato and 2 more to go. Dice these up. And one thing tip that I like to say is typically with like the butt end of the tomato, you always don't use that side because it can be more slippery and harder to cut through. So you want to flip it over and you start chopping from the inside, just because that makes it so much quicker and easier. I'm just going to stir this a little bit more.
Sarah, Naomi is admiring your knife. She says it goes through those tomatoes so easily and makes clean cuts.
Oh, this is like, I've had this knife forever. If anything, it's like my old faithful. I don't know if it's the knife or the pressure that I'm doing, but it's been great. I mean, I'm not even sure if it's Dillis. It's like a meat brand I got forever ago, and it's just been super faithful and helpful, so I keep it.
Do you sharpen your own knife?
Yes, I do actually sharpen my knife. I probably need to go through and resharpen a lot of mine, but yeah, I do like doing that. It definitely saves money.
Yeah.
Let's just keep on stirring this as they start to cook down and get more translucent. If you can't see it because of all the smoke, I'll turn on this fan too, because that's just the steam from the veggies, the water leaving the vegetables. Back to the tomato. We're almost done with slicing the tomatoes. So here's the ends. I'm just going to flip it up on the inside to cook it. To chop it. Down here. So this is what 3 diced tomatoes look like. It's kind of a lot. So I'm just going to go back to stirring this, making sure it's cooked down. And then I'll be adding in the tomatoes and water. So just gonna add in the tomatoes. And this is the 3 diced tomatoes. But you could also use a can of diced tomatoes. So just adding that in. And then I'm gonna stir this around, but what I'll also be doing is adding in the water and increasing the heat to high. If you want the liquid to be boiling, so once you're ready to add the lentils, then it can cook. So first what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn off this fan so you can hear me better, and then I'm gonna add 2 teaspoons of ground cumin. So here's my cumin. Crack this open. These wrappers nowadays, they're so tricky. It's like they don't want you to get into them. Okay, perfect. So for the cumin, we'll be doing 2 teaspoons of that. Okay, perfect. So 1, oh, let me show you me putting it in. 1, okay, and 2. I'm heavy-handed anyway, so if you see a little extra scoops in there, that's fine with me. Great, so I'm just stirring this all in, and oh my gosh, this smells so good. It looks so pretty. The colors. And so, great, I'm just gonna let this cook, and then I need to add the water and let it boil to high. So for water, this recipe calls for 8 cups. Which sounds like a lot, but then you remember that it's a stew, so you want a lot of water into it. Now I'm just gonna do 8 cups of water. And so here's my kettle here. So we've got 1, I'll push this down, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. Wow, I had just enough water, so for the 8 cups. Perfect, so I'm gonna put this on high now, move the temperature up to high, just so I can get it to boil. And one thing that I also like to do is just kind of add the lid onto it. And once it starts boiling, then we'll add the lentils to it. So what I'm gonna do is just open up the can of lentils and get this so it's boiling. Let's get with the lentils. You guys can see. All right, so we have 3 cans here, and I'll be opening those up and have them ready.
Sarah, we've got a comment here we should probably actually pass on to your boss. It says, "You're a delight to watch. You move so efficiently and effortlessly and make it look easy."
Thank you. That's so nice. I try. I mean, honestly, I'm looking at the mess right now and I'm like, man, I got some cleaning to do. Usually when I'm cooking, it doesn't even look like I'm cooking because I'm too busy cleaning up after myself while I'm cooking.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that, you know, I'm doing it at a good enough pace so everyone can keep up with me. Perfect. So now we have the second can we're opening here. It's a nice little arm workout. So I like having the, you know, the old, you know, old-fashioned one, you know, where you have to do it the mechanical way. Perfect. We have our second can.
Oh, Sarah, we have a question about a discrepancy in the written recipe. Rose says the recipe says only 1 cup of water if using canned lentils.
Oh my gosh, you are right. You're so right. You're actually very right. Wow.
Let's give credit to Joanne too, because hers came in while I was reading Rose's comment.
So what I have here also is, let me check here. I have dry lentils right here. So I'm just going to use dry lentils then because that's what naturally happened. Or what I can do is, so I have 2 options, and everyone please feel free to assist. I can use my dry lentils and have them cook with the dish, or I can drain this out, use 1 cup, and use the wet canned lentils. What do you think would be best?
Well, there's a couple ways to go with that, aren't there? So for our viewers, they're not going to get to see the finished dish if you're putting in the dried lentils.
That is true.
So maybe the easiest way is to skim off whatever water you can.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. I want everyone to see the. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna skim out the water real quick.
Now, I was telling you, I made this earlier and I used the dry lentils. This makes a lot.
Oh, it makes a ton. It makes a ton, especially if you're using dry lentils. It feels like even more for some reason.
Yeah. I feel like I could have easily halved this and still had a lot of leftover. As it is right now, I've got a lot to share.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have leftovers for at least like a few days. At least a few days. So
I've become very good at dropping off food with people. Naomi asks, you're going to lose some of the seasoning, won't you, by draining the water?
Yes, so what I'm also going to do is I'm just going to pep up the seasoning a little bit too. So I'm going to add at least another teaspoon of the cumin and another bit of the red pepper. So it's just going to be super flavorful, but it's no biggie at all. I mean, recipes, it's great to use as a foundation. And, you know, you kind of build off that based upon your own preference. So yeah, we will be losing a little bit of flavor because it's kind of cooked in. Thank goodness it didn't start boiling yet, because once it starts boiling, we're a little bit in trouble. So I'm just going to add a teaspoon of cumin just to make up for that lost flavor. And then for the red pepper, I'm just going to freehand it a little bit and drizzle a little bit in. It calls for dried red pepper, but if you like using fresh red pepper, I would say, you know, use like 1/3 and add that into the dish. But what I can promise you on my end is that it still smells very potent in the kitchen. This still has a strong flavor. I'm not adding any water to it because as much as I drained off, I think it has enough. And if it calls for extra, I'll add a little bit, but I like my stews very chunky. Okay, perfect. If anyone is cooking along, note the smell. It smells so good. Like it smells up the whole kitchen, which is really, really nice. So now what I'm gonna do is add the canned lentils and let those cook. And once it's done, it will usually take about like 20-ish minutes or so, but we still want to make sure that it boils, it starts to boil. And so as you see here, it's already starting to boil. When you take out a lot of that liquid, it makes a huge difference, huh? So just letting it boil. And my apologies, guys. The last time I cooked this dish, I actually used dry lentils. Every time I make this dish, I always use dried lentils. So this is my first time trying the canned, just because I want everyone to be able to see the finished product. So I'm just gonna, we have it boiling up now. And so I'm gonna add the canned lentils to it. Perfect. Here, let me show it on the video. Perfect. Wow, these lentils are packed in here. I have not used canned lentils in a while, so this is fun. All right, perfect. Great, so that's one. Let's do with the second one. Oh, that came out super easily. And now let's do the third can. Great.
Sarah, Naomi asks if any color of dry lentils will do.
Yeah, I really like using kind of like the red colored lentils for this stew. I think the recipe that we have actually within the curriculum, we're not too picky about it. So we don't have anything in particular that says use black lentils or red lentils. But the way I've seen it actually in the past is typically with the red. So yeah. Okay, so here's with all the lentils in it. It looks like a lot of stew. So I just have to blend this in a little bit. And then I'm gonna let it cook. And also what is nice is you can chop up some cilantro, usually like 3 tablespoons if you're doing like dry cilantro, but I like to use fresh cilantro just because I always have it around in the kitchen. So I'll be chopping that in and using that as garnish for the stew. So great, just stirring that in, but look how rich this looks. It's like, this is a stew that is dinner. It will fill you up. And it's nice because it's 100% plant-based, so it's really, really nice. And if you're like me, when you make stew, I mean, I love making stew and, you know, having it right then and now, but there's something about stew the next day, like cooking stew the next day when you really let the seasoning and everything kind of go into it. It just tastes so good. So yes, I'll be enjoying it today, but I know it's going to taste even better tomorrow. So perfect. What I'm going to do now is just get rid of these cans, and then I'm going to chop up the avocado, put the rice on the plate, chop up some cilantro, just so everything will be presentable for you guys. Perfect. So I'll move this out of the way. I'll move the cilantro over. And I will get rid of this one and use a different cutting board. Perfect. I love cleaning while I cook. I have the avocado here. And then I cooked some rice actually earlier today for another dish, surprisingly, but I will be using that just to go over with the stew. So here's the rice. I did about 2 cups, so it's a lot of rice, but I love, if you're like me, then you love cooking a lot of rice and then using it for multiple different recipes throughout the week. But also whole grains is really nice too. So using substitutes for just white rice, so maybe bulgur or fonio or millet or sorghum are also really nice alternatives. So it's really nice to venture out and try different types of grains, and whole grains are a lot healthier too. So great. What I'm going to do now is just chop up the avocado into slices, and I'll show you my neat tip on how I do it. Nothing too fancy. So just like to go in sideways and kind of chop around the seed. And then just slide it open like a wallet. Bam. I'll do that. And then I just chop within the avocado. So I don't even know why I have this chopping board. Maybe it's a little more dangerous the way I do it, but I just like to make little vertical stripes and then go in and dice it. But we'll be doing sliced avocados on the side. So I just make vertical stripes and then go around the shell part and dump it out. Perfect. And also, one thing about stew that I really love is that there's no such thing as messing up with stew. Like it's such a foolproof sort of recipe. So say it's too chunky and not enough liquid. Okay, add in some vegetable stock. Or, you know, say it's too liquidy. All right, well, let's drain some a little bit and then buff up with the seasoning. So it's so forgiving. And this stew in general is very forgiving. So, which is really nice. So yes, it's just super easy too. It feeds a lot of people, and it's a quick meal. You'll have leftovers for days, which is nice. So just got chopped up here. Just gonna dump it out. Got the avocado slices. Great. And then I'm gonna add some rice to the plate too. Perfect. Great, and just bear with me, we're almost done. I'm gonna chop up some cilantro too, just because we like to have that for garnish. So let me just rinse off my knife real quick. So I just have like a little handful here. I'm just going to use the top bits of it. Here, chop that up. Great. Now, as we notice, it's starting to bubble. So let's move this lid off. Awesome. So here's my stir stick here. I'm going to turn down the heat to medium low. Oh my gosh, the flavors and everything. So now what we're just going to do is scoop some out, put it on top of the rice with the avocado slices on the side, and we'll be done. So let me just get my spoon here.
While you're plating that up, let me check in with our home cooks today. I know that Carol has been cooking along. Carol, would you like to show us yours too? I'm going to bring Carol over just in case. And of course, Carol, if you don't want to, you can just let me know.
Unmute.
You are unmuted, Carol. Hello.
Hi.
Let me see if I can find you here. Let's see. Oh, you've got something over your camera. Did you cook along with Sarah today?
Yes, I did. Let me peel that off of the camera. Yeah. There.
Hello.
Hi. I can't see what you're seeing, but I've got my stew.
All right. Oh, there it is. Can you see that, Sarah?
Yes, I can see it. It's got a very nice like red tone to it. Did you use the canned tomatoes?
Yes, I used a can of tomatoes. I used red split lentils, and they cook up really quick.
Yes, they do. Oh my gosh, yes. Yum. Does your kitchen smell very fragrant?
Oh yeah, it's very fragrant.
Oh yeah, it's very nice.
How did your chimichurri turn out, Carol?
It's a little thick. I couldn't whirl it around very much in the blender, but it's good. It's on top of the egg that's in the bowl.
Oh, okay. You can do is if you want to thin it up, I would, just continue to pulsate the blender. But you could also add a little extra olive oil to it.
I know, but it's so oily, and I'm a little bit not fond of things that are terribly oily.
Oh, well, I mean, the other option that I can think of is probably the vinegar, but it will, adding more parsley to it actually would help.
Right. Well, it turned out good, I think.
Perfect. Well, here's mine. We've got the avocado slices here. Oh, does it show? I don't know if I'm showing it. Does it? You guys see it? Okay.
I'll fix that in a second. Let's see. There we go. All right, show us that.
So here it is. I got a little dash of pepper to it. Got some cilantro on top. We've got the Menestra stew. We've got some avocado slices on the side, and it's over some rice. So this is a meal. It's delicious. It's really nice. And let me take the first bite since I made the first mistake to make sure that everything tastes the way it should. Because I've never tried it with canned lentils. I've actually only tried it with dried, but nothing against canned. I just always have dried lentils on hand, but wanted to give it a try. Just gonna go in for another bite real quick.
And we've had some people today who said, "Oh, I'm going to cook this for dinner tonight," and I cooked this. I cooked this during my lunch period today, and I am not a fast cook, but this came together really quick. It was super easy, and I do have a picture to share. I'll knock your recipe off the screen. So there's mine. It turned out a lot thicker than yours. But that's just a matter of how much liquid I put in. I didn't want to fill up the pot too much. I used dry lentils and I used canned tomatoes, and I'm happy with that texture actually. But yeah, I saw with your recipe later that, oh, yours is a little bit different. It's more liquidy.
Yeah, you know what? I think it was because a little bit of the mishap, but also, when you have the canned lentils, you also have the liquid from that's going in too. So I think when I usually do it with a dry lentil, it can be a little bit more thicker, but it's all based upon your preference too. I think I like both ways. I'm not sure which one I like more, but also I like a little spice too. So I didn't cheat this time, but sometimes what I'll do is I'll chop up some slices of serrano peppers and add that to the stew also, just because I love a little spice kick. Which is really nice, but yeah, super delicious. And one thing that I also forgot to mention is that also sometimes people pair this stew with various sides, rice, avocado, plantains, but also curtido, and it's like this. It's a Salvadoran salad, and so typically it has jalapenos, carrots, cabbage, and it's fermented. So you want to have it in vinegar and water and canned in room temperature for usually like 24 to 48 hours. And we have a staff potluck this week. So I actually am featuring it for our potluck, and it'll be on the website. But I want to show you a sneak peek of it. And I'm sorry if I'm taking up too much time. So here is the one that I created with red pepper. So it with red onion, so it has that pink hue. And this plastic bag here, if you're fermenting anything, it's a really cool tip that I saw. You just put a plastic bag, fill it with water, and of course seal it up, and then put it in the bag, and it'll hold down the vegetables so the liquid can go over it, of course. and everything will be fermented properly. So I'd say usually like for 48 hours or so, but it smells so good. And it's a nice like little side salad, but also what I've noticed from the South, like when I was, because I'm from Texas, usually with tacos, they usually have like some type of greenery with it. And it's never like lettuce or like cabbage or something. It's always like red onion. And that's actually this. It's curtido mix that they usually add with the tacos that you'll see, like fish tacos and stuff. Or they'll do, you know, of course, pico de gallo. So yeah, it's really cool. And that's the one that I made. And this is another one based upon a recipe that I found. And of course, made a lot of different changes to it, but it's very picante, muy picante. Like it has a whole serrano pepper in here and it has some spice, but it is so delicious. So if you're ever looking for that, you know, recipe, it'll be featured on Oldways website. So just right here on our website under our A Taste of Latin American Heritage Recipes.
All right, and I just dropped the Oldways, the link into the chat there. And that's a great tip for the curtido. I'm a curtido lover. Whenever I go out for pupusas, I can't get enough of that stuff.
Yes! So. Yes. Oh my God. Yes. With pupusas, it's so good. So yeah, well, it's so funny because it's like, I've tried it a couple of times and I've, you know, learned it from family friends, but I've never, like, I haven't made it in forever. Like I've only made it as like kind of like a group fun activity. And so I was like thinking of recipes for our staff potluck. And I was like, what can I make? And I was like, I'm going to do this curtido. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of chopping of ingredients, but it's really fun. And it's kind of like a science experiment just to watch it ferment.
Yeah. Well, we're getting lots of thanks and tips. Let's see, Carol said, thank you for dinner. She is the person who cooked along with you today. She says the chimichurri adds great flavor to the Menestra. I agree with that. I did do a little bit of that too. Rose says, love that Ziploc bag with a water tip to submerge food marinating. Never thought of that. And Andrea has a tip. She says, when cooking any type of legumes, if you end up with more liquid than you wanted, don't throw away the liquid. It makes a delicious soup because it has all that flavor in it.
Yes, and it actually has a lot of nutrients too. So I do feel a little guilty about it.
Well, the water didn't spend too much time with everything else.
Yeah, it didn't get to boil. So yeah, didn't have to spend too much time. But actually within the African Heritage curriculum, usually that liquid that you would use to make like collard greens, and I think I mentioned this last time, but it's the pot liquor. So you would use that for other stews, and it has a lot of nutrients in it because it's soaking up the greens and everything. So it's really nice.
Yeah. And everybody, as I dropped earlier into the chat, Sarah was with us several months ago to give us a demonstration from the African Heritage Diet. And that lives on our program archive, as this will. And that'll be going out to you in your thank you note from Zoom tomorrow. So don't throw those out, share them. Also, the book that Sarah shared is available through Menlo Park Library, and that will go in tomorrow's note as well.
Awesome.
So we have a really good cookbook collection, no matter what way people like. Go to menlopark.org/library and look it up, and you can place them on hold and we can let you know when they're in. So you could just run in and pick up your book and go if you don't feel like browsing. Sarah, it's been great to have you back with us tonight. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you for everyone, you know, venturing in, asking awesome questions and cooking along. I always have so much fun cooking with Mello. So this is awesome that, you know, round 2, John. So this is perfect and so much fun.
So happy to have you back. I don't want to leave without saying what Kathy had to say. She says the dishes look amazing. She's really excited about making the chimichurri because she had not realized you could eat it with anything but meat.
Yes, absolutely. With meat too. It's great. So it's absolutely with and without. Yep. There's a will, there is a way. So, and it's great because our entire curriculum is plant-based. So that's what we focus on is, you know, having these dishes paired with, you know, vegetarian, vegan friendly dishes. So there's no dairy or anything actually within our curriculum, but of course within the Mediterranean one, you can't go without. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. And thank you so much for having me. So I hope everyone has a good night and delicious dinners.
Thank you. Sarah Anderson is with Oldways, and that's going to go in your follow-up as well, so you can learn more about Oldways and all of their heritage diets. Thanks again, Sarah.
Absolutely. Take care,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you, everyone. Hope to see you soon. menlopark.org/library. Be safe.